The danger did not arrive as surprise. That is the part history often forgets. Rome was never caught unaware. The warnings came early, and they came often. They arrived as reports, as murmurs, as inconveniences that interrupted ceremony. They were discussed, recorded, and then quietly absorbed into the background of imperial life. What unsettled Rome was not the presence of warning, but the implication it carried, that authority itself might be insufficient. And so the contradiction took root. Rome believed its power existed to prevent decline, yet that same power made decline impossible to name. Authority has a way of dulling urgency. When command has worked before, it feels natural to assume it will work again. Rome had commanded storms of chaos into order for centuries. It had survived invasions, civil wars, assassinations, plagues. Each survival became evidence not just of resilience, but of entitlement. The empire did not merely endure, it expected to. Warnings were interpreted through that expectation. They were not signals of rupture, but variations of a familiar script. Rome listened, but it listened selectively, hearing confirmation where it needed reassurance. Power does not fear danger as much as it fears irrelevance. To admit that the old responses no longer applied would have required a quieter voice, a more uncertain posture. Rome did not know how to speak that way. The world Rome ruled was vast, layered, and slow to change in appearance. Roads still held, cities still paid tribute, the Senate still convened beneath inherited ceilings. Authority expressed itself through continuity. The empire felt permanent because its forms were permanent. Stone outlasted generations, and law outlasted stone. Rome learned to read stability in architecture, to mistake endurance of structure for endurance of control. Information moved upward through channels shaped by hierarchy. Reports were filtered long before they reached the center. Each layer softened what it carried. Disorder at the edge became mismanagement. Strain became inefficiency. Threat became inconvenience. Authority did not require deception to be misled. It required alignment. Those who governed in Rome's name understood what kind of knowledge was welcome. They learned how to describe trouble without disturbing legitimacy. The empire was not ignorant of its size. It was proud of it. Scale itself became proof of authority. To rule so much land for so long suggested not fragility, but destiny. Rome oriented itself around that belief. Its institutions preserved memory, ritual, and rank. They rewarded continuity over curiosity. The past was not a resource to be questioned, but a standard to be upheld. Warnings that contradicted inherited confidence felt out of place. They did not fit the grammar of power. Rome did not lack advisors or critics. It lacked space for doubt that threatened the meaning of command. Authority expects obedience first, understanding later. Over time, that ordering reshapes perception itself. The pattern unfolded slowly, concealed by success. Expansion continued even as cohesion thinned. New territories added wealth and obligation in equal measure. Authority stretched outward, claiming more ground, more loyalty, more complexity. Each conquest delayed reckoning by providing new resources to mask internal strain. Rome's power grew broader while becoming less precise. Military victories still occurred, but they required greater effort. Borders hardened from symbols into demands. Garrisons became permanent where once they were temporary. Loyalty shifted from institutions to individuals who could guarantee reward. Authority noticed the symptoms, but interpreted them through precedent. There had always been ambitious generals. There had always been restless provinces. What mattered was that Rome still decided the outcome. Power prefers decisiveness. Rome's decisions became louder as their effects diminished. Decrees multiplied, offices expanded, titles accumulated layers of honor that compensated for thinning control. The empire asserted itself more frequently, not because it ruled more effectively, but because it sensed resistance. Each assertion reinforced the belief that authority needed display to remain real. Warnings now appeared as patterns rather than events. Tax systems that required constant adjustment, armies that needed incentives rather than duty, laws that multiplied to cover gaps once filled by trust. Authority responded by tightening. Compliance replaced commitment. Fear substituted for loyalty. Rome governed behavior, not belief. The distortion deepened quietly. Those closest to power learned how to survive it. They learned when to speak, when to remain silent, when to translate failure into acceptable language. Authority became surrounded by agreement that concealed fragility. The empire did not collapse under rebellion first. It hollowed under alignment. Rome still held trials, issued edicts, minted coins stamped with confidence. Yet the symbols began to circulate without substance. Currency lost weight. Promises lost credibility. Authority demanded more precisely because it delivered less. Each demand widened the distance between ruler and ruled. What Rome could not see clearly was its own insulation. Power had created buffers that protected it from consequence. Decisions were made far from their effects. Accountability dispersed across offices until it belonged to no one. When outcomes disappointed, blame traveled downward. Authority remained intact, unchallenged, unquestioned. Warnings became sharper, more difficult to reframe. Recruitment faltered. Borders bent without breaking, then broke without warning. Provinces complied in form while withdrawing in spirit. Rome responded by reaffirming legitimacy. It spoke of restoration, renewal, return. Every change was framed as continuity. The empire insisted it was becoming what it had always been. This insistence narrowed the range of possible responses. Retreat looked like admission. Reform looked like concession. Listening looked like weakness. Authority trapped itself inside the performance of strength. Rome did not choose decline. It chose coherence with its own image. The fracture emerged not as collapse, but as constraint. Authority lost freedom of action. Every move had to signal dominance, even when dominance undermined effectiveness. Rome could no longer adapt without appearing to surrender the meaning of command. Power became heavy, inflexible, burdened by its own history. The center grew distant from reality, not because it ignored reports, but because it interpreted them through fear of illegitimacy. To acknowledge systemic failure would have meant questioning the authority that sustained the empire's identity. That question was deferred again and again until deferral became habit. Obedience lingered after belief faded. Rome still ruled, but it ruled over exhaustion. Subjects complied because resistance felt costly, not because authority felt rightful. The empire mistook silence for stability. It mistook routine for loyalty. Power continued to function long after it stopped persuading. What finally eroded was not territory alone, but confidence in command. Authority sensed this erosion, but could not address it directly. To do so would have required a quieter posture, a willingness to be less than absolute. Rome had no language for partial authority. It knew command, not calibration. The warnings that once arrived as noise now appeared as absence. Empty treasuries, vacant offices, unanswered orders. Authority responded as it always had, by asserting itself. But assertion without resonance becomes echo. Rome spoke into spaces that no longer reflected its voice. The pattern does not end cleanly. There is no single moment where Rome chooses decline. There is only the accumulation of decisions shaped by fear of appearing weak. Authority preserved itself symbolically, even as it lost substance. The empire endured longer than its coherence. What lingers is the unresolved tension between power and perception. Rome did not fall because it was blind. It fell because its authority taught it what not to see. The warnings were heard, processed, and set aside, not out of ignorance, but out of loyalty to the idea that command must remain unquestioned. That loyalty outlived usefulness. It hardened into reflex, and reflex replaced judgment. Power continued to speak in the language of inevitability, even as inevitability withdrew its support. The echo remains unfinished. Authority, once proven, begins to trust itself more than reality. Warnings accumulate, responses repeat. The pattern waits, patient, for the next empire that believes command alone can outlast change. Subscribe to Timeless Questions for more thoughtful journeys into the ideas and forces that shape civilizations and continue to shape us.